Okay, so we've decided to add just a little segment on the front end of our hide processing video that we've already done. I got to thinking about it and I thought we really should talk about different scraping tools and possibilities that there are out there. The old original scraping tools were either stone or bone, and this happens to be a buffalo hump bone. And these were used a lot by the natives. Got two sharp edges on it that work good for scraping. This is the front leg bone off of an elk with a chunk knocked out of it. So you actually have two sharp edges there that work great for scraping, and they work fine. Stone tools, I have some stone tools that I picked up, but they're on display in display cabinets in the house, so I didn't bring those up. Another possibility for a scraping tool, a lot of people use a draw knife, and this pretty much has to be used on an upright beam where you're actually pulling down like so, instead of a beam like I have here that's what I call a push beam. And the draw knife doesn't have to be an antique like this one, made in 1891. You can go for a more modern or just an old beater. There's possibility of making your own. I've made several of these planer blade scrapers. They have I put a teakwood handle on each end, so it's got a nice grip on it, and they're just a planer blade out of planer mills, which these are hard to come by anymore because our lumber mills are becoming almost extinct. Commercial wise, I'll come around here. We have you have a multitude of possibilities for commercial scrapers, and this is the one that we used in the start of our video the other night. This is a post, and if you don't mind spending $100 or more, these are real nice, and we're going to use it because it's the only one I have right now that's really sharp. This is another commercial made one. This is called a Weeby, and basically the same shape blade and everything as the post. Handles are a little more comfortable, but I kind of prefer the post if I'm going to use one of the commercial ones. And then here's a man size, or a real tough lady size giant scraper here. This big heavy thing is made from a veneer clipper blade, and it's 2 inches wide and 1/4 inch thick. It's got really big handles on it, and this you would use on moose, elk, buffalo. That's for big hikes. You don't need something like this on a deer hike. So we just wanted to go over those tools a little bit, and we're going to add that on to the front end of our video that we've already done. Okay, so what I'm going to show you today is how to fresh scrape a deer hide. This hide just came off the deer. It hasn't been soaked in anything. I don't soak my hides in anything. No alkali or anything like that at all. And this is more like what was originally done by our Native American tribes. At least the ones that did the wet scrape. This is called wet scrape, and I call the whole process fresh scrape because I'm going to flesh it first, and this is going to take us about 10 minutes or so to do, and I'll do a couple minutes of it just to show you what's happening here. So we're just trying to push off the meat and the fat. A couple minutes of this. We won't bore you for 10 whole minutes, but this is what I'm doing. It's just pushing off the meat and the fat. Not very much meat left on this one. It was skinned pretty well. Take all that stuff right off to the edge. Okay, our fleshing tool, two-handled, kind of a curved blade. This edge is dull. This edge is hair shaving sharp, and so it can be kind of dangerous. I actually cut this finger, it took 10 stitches on that blade, and I just barely touched it, and I still don't have any feeling in that finger, and this is like 3 years later. So that edge is very sharp, and I'll show you the reason for it here in a little bit. Okay, so it only took us 7.5 minutes to flesh this deer hide. So that's not 100% done yet, but in another step here we'll go ahead and take the membrane off. There's still a thin layer of membrane right here, but that's hard to get off until you remove the hair. So, fresh deer hide, fleshed in 7.5 minutes. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to put the tail end of the deer hide away from me. That's the tail end right there. So I'm going to have the neck towards me and the tail end away. Turn it over with the hair side up like so. Make sure everything's good and flat on here, because the next thing we're going to do here involves that sharp edge of this fleshing knife. So to make it a little bit easier to get started here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shave a little bit of hair off of this, and then I'm going to go right ahead and I'm going to scrape the hair and grain off of this fresh hide. Not soaked, remember, not soaked in anything. And this would have been the way the Native Americans did it. They didn't have time to, or containers or whatever else they needed to soak hides, really. It was done pretty much this way, except for the tribes that did the dry scrape method. But a lot of them, the way I learned it, was wet scrape from the Nez Perce grandmothers. So here's what I'm going to do. And this takes a little finesse and practice, because like I said, that blade right there is so sharp. It's hair shaving sharp. You see that? How that hair is coming off of there? So a little finesse, a little practice to do that, because you can cut holes in the hide real easy, and I did when I first started. I cut holes in the hide, so you don't want to cut holes in your nice hide here. So I'm just going to shave off some hair and make sure that thing is laying flat and you're not bunching anything up underneath there, because you will cut the hide. Okay, so don't have to get every last bit of it off, but it's just a good starting point. So right back here. Okay, now I'm going to flip that fleshing knife over. Now I have that dull edge right there again. Okay, so now I want you to get closer, Justin, and hone in on what I'm doing. Okay, so if you soak the hide in something like lime or lye, alkali, whatever, wood ashes, and take the hair off, it's really hard to see where that grain is sometimes. So your hair is really a good reference point, and hopefully here, hold that up just a little bit. That brown area there is grain right next to the hair. So we're taking that off, we're taking the hair off, and we're doing this on a fresh hide that hasn't been soaked. So we'll keep working on that a little bit. This is all a little exercise. No part of doing this is really without a little bit of work, so that's just part of the deal. A little work is involved, and anything worth doing it requires a little work. So you can try to make things easier by soaking or doing whatever, but you're not really helping yourself out any. There's some of that grain right there. Can you hone in on that pretty close there? So it's easier to see your grain when it's a fresh hide like this too. If you keep this thing close to you, it's kind of nice too, rather than trying to reach way out there. doggy knows she's missing out on some goodies here. She's usually right under my feet picking up the scraps. She's upset about it. She says, "What's going on here? I always get to help with this part of the project." Okay, so alright, so we've got a pretty good little start right down the middle. Hair and grain's off. We're down to just the hide fibers and some membrane on the other side. And so we're not going to stand here for an hour because that's about how long it's going to take for me to scrape this whole hide and remove all the hair and grain. So what I'm going to do now is the strip that I've got cleared, I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to take some membrane off just to show you that little part of it. Maybe I'll take just a little more of this off. Get a little wider spot here. You can cut all this hair off ahead of time. You can cut it off with scissors. You can use a pair of sheep shears, whatever. But this is working well. Has always worked well for me. Is just cut some hair off ahead of my scraping. Okay. All right. So I'm going to flip it over now, Justin. That scrape spot right on top of my beam here. Okay. I don't know if you can, probably can't see that real good there, but when I get the whole hide completely scraped is when I'll actually do this part. But I just want to show you how it works. So you come back in here and you can when you're all done scraping, you can come back over here and do this membrane side. It takes about 10 minutes. And that's, you see the membrane piling up on the blade there. So you go over the whole thing. And then when you get done, you got a perfectly clean piece of hide fiber there. And my next step is just to wash it in a bucket of plain cold water. Get some of the loose hair off of it. And then I go around, punch holes around the whole edge and put it in the frame and let it dry into rawhide. Once it's dry, I roll it up and hang it up. You guys have probably seen some pictures of some of my rolled up hides. And it hangs there till I'm ready to do the next step, which is brain it and wring it and soften it. So